So we're here at the Australian Army Tank Museum taking a look at some of the World War II era tanks in their collection, and here we have another British tank that's here at Puckapunyal, about 120 kilometres north of Melbourne on a rainy day. This tank is the Matilda II Infantry Tank. So in the British doctrine, they recognised two primary tank types: the infantry tank, which was to be designed to support infantry operations on foot, infantry on foot, and cruiser tanks, which were designed to engage other tanks and create breakthroughs and operate behind enemy lines, breaking up communications, etc. So as an infantry tank, it tended to sacrifice mobility for armour protection because it was designed to trundle along with dismounted infantry and provide support to them. And that's what the Matilda was designed considering. So quite a heavy cast hull, a suspension which is designed primarily for low speed travel rather than high speed highway travel, and it was employed early in the war in France and also in the North African desert. And was also supplied to the Russians under Lend-Lease. And about 400 examples ended up in the hands of the Australian Army, and these were used in Bougainville, in Papua New Guinea, and also in Borneo. This version, like most of the Matildas, was fitted with the QF 2-pounder gun, which fired an armour-piercing round. And it used its coaxially mounted Beza machine gun to provide support for the infantry. Now, when the Germans first encountered this tank in World War II, it was during the Battle of France. The British only deployed about 20 or 23 of these, but when they were employed, they managed to break up an attack of the 7th Panzer Division, which was being led by Erwin Rommel, and it actually blunted the attack and started to break through and to tear up the lines behind the main German force. And it was only when Rommel hastily arranged a defence of 88mm anti-tank guns that they were able to stop these vehicles. And that's because the 37mm anti-tank gun that was on the Panzer III and that was also used in a wheeled configuration by German anti-tank units was incapable of penetrating the relatively heavy armour that the Matilda II had. So it was as thick as 79mm in the frontal areas, and the German 37mm with its armour-piercing round was incapable of stopping it. So it was only when the 88s hove into view that the Germans were able to stop the Matilda. In the end, they were all destroyed, those 23, but they'd shown that the Blitzkrieg and the German tanks were not invincible. Later in North Africa, where it encountered Italian tanks early in the war, it showed that it was capable of dealing with those handily and also had good defences against those. But as more advanced German tanks began to show up in North Africa, mounting heavier guns like the 50mm or 5cm anti-tank gun on the Panzer III, it started to show its vulnerabilities. Ultimately, it was replaced in British operation by other infantry tanks such as the Valentine and the Churchill, but it served its purpose early in the war and continued to see service all the way until the very end with the Australians Army here in the Pacific. Australians made some changes to the vehicle to help improve its reliability. The basic vehicle itself is fitted with diesel engines, initially twin diesels manufactured by AEC, who made London bus engines, mounted here in the rear, and you can see they've got a rear drive sprocket here, so rear engined and rear drive. Later marks, I think from the Mark II onwards, employed Leyland diesel engines instead of the AEC engines. As I mentioned, it wasn't designed for high-speed off-road travel, so the 10 road wheels are mounted in configuration of bogies, so 2 wheels per bogie, with fairly limited travel, so not a lot of ability to absorb bumps and high loads. But again, the tank was only designed to keep pace with infantry, not to go racing off behind the lines to break up communications. These side skirts, which are designed to keep debris and protect the running gear, used to have a lot of trouble in the jungle, getting jungled up in the undergrowth. The Russians, who were supplied about 1,000 of these vehicles under Lend-Lease, also complained that they easily froze up, that mud got clogged in them, etc., etc. So there were some problems with the running gear in some of the configurations in which it was used, or some of the theatres in which it was used. The Australians mounted brush guards here onto this area to cover up the front of the track, to stop the track picking up branches and other debris in the jungles of Southeast Asia. That was one of the countermeasures that were put in place for Australian operation. So, an important tank early in the war. It was the main infantry tank that the British had available to them when hostilities broke out, and was ultimately supplanted, but served its purpose. And great to have one here in the collection at the Australian Army Tank Museum.